A circle within a circle, a wheel within a wheel, a eel within an eel. That's not right. The Wheel of Time. The Eye of the World, first book in the Wheel of Time series, was one of the books on my TBR pile for this year, and I have read it now. As you may have already surmised, in this video I'll be reviewing it. I knew very little about the Wheel of Time before reading this, in terms of plot-wise. I just knew that it was a big, grand, epic fantasy, and I knew that it was a very long series, so I was trepidatious about getting into it. If my lockdown hair was a series, The Wheel of Time would be it. Have to keep it out of my face with a snapback. Also, I just like snapbacks. So I was expecting quite a slow-paced, slow burn kind of story, and for the first sort of 50 or so pages, I felt like that's what it was going to be. It felt very similar to the sort of getting everything ready for Bilbo's party at the start of Lord of the Rings. But then once the actual threat becomes apparent, something that I really liked about this book is, like, it kept up that level of threat for the entire thing. The basic story of this book is that the main characters are being chased by the bad characters. It's one big chase, essentially, and they're trying to get to a safe place, and throughout the entire journey, there's never a single point where you feel like the MCs are entirely safe, and I really like the way that this book did that and kept up, you know, the threat levels. Like, you're always kind of on guard. You're like, who can we trust? Where can we go? Can we take a stop to rest, to eat, and whatnot? Really liked how much it hammered home, like, the stakes of how much the hand of the enemy is closing in around the main characters. So I was pleasantly surprised with how fast-paced this book actually was. Speaking of Bilbo's party, I feel like every fantasy book at some level homages Tolkien, but some of the homages or references in this book were quite blatant. Like in Lord of the Rings you have the Misty Mountains, you know, there they are. And in The Wheel of Time you have, get this, the Mountains of Mist. That made me chuckle. It's just so similar. It's not really a negative point, but it did take me out of the story a little bit just because it was so similar. It just made me laugh when it came up. It was like, Mountains of Mist? Cool. Misty Mountains, I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. However, something that differentiated it from Tolkien's work, something I really did like, was that the enemy, the armies of the Dark One, were comprised not of orcs, but of creatures that are unique to this world. So we have Trollocs and Myrddraal and Drakkar, if I'm saying those right. And while they sort of serve the same function as orcs and Nazgul and fell beasts, I appreciated that they're different species. They're not the standard fantasy villains. Even though Trollocs are like just a mindless horde of creatures that are loyal to the Dark One, I like that they're these human-animal hybrid things as opposed to just your basic orcs or goblins. Another fantasy species that is unique to this world is the Ogier, or Ogier. I can't remember if that's a hard or soft G, but someone in the comments might let me know. But we meet one of them about halfway through the book. His name is Loyal, and he is fantastic. I absolutely loved that character as soon as he appeared. I was like, I love this character. This is my favourite guy from this. He reminded me a lot of, this is one for Critical Role fans, he reminded me a lot of Pumat Sol. I don't know if Matt Mercer's read this series, if he was inspired for Pumat Sol by Loyal from this, or if it's just a coincidence, but, you know, he definitely reminded me a lot of the Furball Grace from D&D, and so I sort of made that connection there. But yeah, when he said that he was going to tag along with their group and continue his journey with them, I was delighted, because I was like, yes, I want to experience more of this character. I am delighted that he is joining the questing party. Speaking of the questing party, let's talk about the main characters. So the primary trio are three boys who are friends, and one of them is someone the Dark Lord is after, but we're not sure which one of them it is. So we have Rand and Matt and Perrin, and Rand is the main character of the book. I really liked Rand's chapters right at the start after he's first attacked and he's trying to get his dad to the medic in town. That's the point where the threat of what is happening begins to become apparent, and like the desperation with which they are trying to fight back and find some safety and find some respite. Really good chapter, really felt like the character's urgency to, you know, find a way out of the situation. Although I have to say, for the most part, I wasn't as fond of Rand. He became kind of a generic fantasy protagonist as sort of the book went on. And then there's his friend Matt, who I didn't like as much. He's probably my least favourite of that trio. And my favourite of that trio is Perrin. I like Perrin, I think he was a cool guy, I like what he's about. I like that he got some POV chapters of his own in the book. I like Lan and Moiraine. They're the sort of the guides that our main characters have, who are trying to get them to the safe place. I'm trying to talk about this in vague terms without spoiling anything, if that wasn't clear. But yeah, I like them well enough. I really liked Nynaeve Almera. I thought she was a real standout character from the cast of this book. From the moment she first appeared, I was like, oh yeah, she's cool, I like her. So that was, again, a moment where I was like, when she appeared, I was like, oh, I hope she's gonna come on the quest with the rest of them, and then she did, and I was like, yes. That is what I wanted to happen. I'm gonna talk some minor spoilers now, so if you really don't want to know anything about what happens in this book and go in blind like I did, I'll put the time codes up on the screen so you can skip over. So towards the end of the book, Nynaeve and Lan end up having a sort of romance kind of thing, which we don't really see happen. It seems to happen off page. I didn't entirely buy it based on what we saw from their interactions beforehand. I know we spent a lot of time away from them when we were following Rand and the others. It felt very sudden to me that suddenly Nynaeve had feelings for Lan, and he also has feelings for her, but doesn't want to be in a relationship. That felt like it came out of nowhere for me, personally, so that's something that I didn't particularly like. The idea of Nynaeve and Lan having a relationship is fine, I just felt like it came way too suddenly out of nowhere. A sequence I really did like was in Caemlyn, when they're trying to keep a low profile and Rand accidentally falls into the grounds of the royal palace. It suddenly became like a farcical comedy of sorts there. It's just like, oh yeah, I can keep a low profile. Oops, no, I've made friends with the prince and princess. I'm known to the royal family now. Whoopsie, that was fun. Going back to the three boys and why I don't quite like Matt as much as the others is because I feel like a lot of the bad decision making comes from the character of Matt in this book. He's not quite as wise as the others, and he's just getting them into trouble unnecessarily. The prime example of that comes relatively early on in the book. They're in a place and they meet a character, this being, and his name is Mordeth. It's sort of a trope in fantasy literature that, like, if more is a syllable in something, that means it's bad. Something bad happened there, or something bad is going to happen. Like in Lord of the Rings alone, you have Morgoth, Mordor, Moria, yeah, the first Dark Lord, the dwelling of the current Dark Lord, and the place that is infested with goblins and a Balrog. In Arthurian legend, you have Mordred, the one who's prophesied to kill King Arthur, because Mor means death, so it's constantly associated with, you know, the Dark Lord and that sort of thing. And so this character, his name is Mordeth, and Matt is like, oh yeah, let's trust this guy. Like, Matt, buddy, his name is Death. What are you thinking? But the place they're in, the whole sequence around that chain of events, very cool sequence. Lots of like very cool sequences and very cool uses of magic in this book as we go along and see sort of the different things that Moraine can do and the different powers that the Myrddraal have and the Dark Lord's army can sort of do to try and chase down the main characters. All very cool stuff. In the sort of end climax of the book, things did get a little like, are we in a dream? Are we in like an induced coma? There's a lot of magic weirdness going on. Can't quite tell where reality ends. Nonetheless, I did really enjoy this book. I got through it fairly quickly for me, and I'm glad that I have now read the first volume of The Wheel of Time. I've now got a sort of grasp of what I'm going to be going into when the show starts airing. I didn't set out to read the entire series, at least not this year. I felt like I could just read the first one and I'd be okay with that. As for whether I will continue the series at some point, well, I have the next two books now, so I will at least read the first trilogy within The Wheel of Time. Whether I'll ever get to the whole thing is up in the air, but I have the next two books now. I probably won't read them this year because I've still got a few books in my TBR that I'm wanting to get through. But I did, whilst I was reading The Eye of the World, sort of think to myself a few times, what I might do is next year have my entire reading pile be The Wheel of Time, and next year I will read the entire thing, and that'll be sort of the main thing I'll read as opposed to any other series. It's a possibility. I'll see how I feel about books 2 and 3. So overall, I give The Wheel of Time, Book 1, The Eye of the World, yeah, I enjoyed this out of 5. I had a good time with this. It was a lot faster paced and less dry than I was expecting. Really enjoyed this. Definitely gonna read the other two and sort of do the first trilogy in the Wheel of Time series. But yeah, not sure what else there is to say other than I enjoyed The Wheel of Time my first time reading it. A couple of things I want to mention before I wrap up the video completely. As some of you watching may know, I do my own comics, and I have recently made myself a webtoon profile, so I am currently uploading them on there. I'm starting with the backlog, so I've uploaded Remo issues 1 and 2, First Day Back on Earth and Sibling Rivalry. I've uploaded the first issue of Genie on there, Sparks Fly. The first issue of Something Blue is going up on the 10th of May, so watch out for that. I am currently working on the first issue of the Pterodactyl, and that is hopefully going to go up on the 20th. So if you follow the links either in the description or up on the screen somewhere, go and check out those on Webtoon, give them a like, subscribe to those series on there, leave a comment, share them around. Any of that, I would really appreciate that. I'll leave links in the description for everywhere you can find the comics, but Webtoon is what I want to push now. I want them to get more traffic on there than they have on the places that I've already posted them. If independent comics are your bag, if you haven't seen the ones that I've done, please do check them out. If you have seen them, check them out again. Yeah, that'd be really cool if you did that. If you want to keep tabs on what I'm doing, my Twitter is @randomjock, and that is usually the first place that I'll post my YouTube videos. If you follow me on there, that's sort of the first place that when I make a video, I'll announce it. And speaking of the YouTube videos, if you enjoyed this and want to see more from me, be it book reviews or comic reviews or stuff like that, please do hit that subscribe button, maybe even the bell if you're feeling brave enough. Click the like button on this video to let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. We've probably had enough of me talking at you by now, so all that's really left to say is thank you all so much for watching this video, and as always, I will see you in my next one. A lot faster paced and less dry than I was expecting. It was wet.